Hello and welcome to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast, number 72. I'm your host, Brian Heineser. Joining me this evening, Mac.
Hey, everybody.
I did you first. And Kimberly.
Hello.
And Ian.
Good evening.
All right. Well, how is everybody doing this evening?
We have heat.
Good.
Yeah? Heat? Oh, well, that heat is good.
Yes, we have heat. It's been a couple of interestingly cold days where we had a small space heater heating the one room in the house that didn't lose heat rapidly, and we had the birds in that room, and in the other rooms we just hid under heavy blankets.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So did you have an equipment malfunction?
Hmm?
Did you have an equipment malfunction, or?
We had an equipment malfunction. You could say that.
Okay.
It turns out that when one is dealing with boiler and radiator heat, turns out that water in the system is actually necessary.
Ah.
And that water should be pumped by something which is reasonably reliable and doesn't make a loud noise. These are things I discovered as the furnace guy was working on it today. But air doesn't conduct the heat nearly as well as the water does. If the pipes are full of air, it's not good.
Okay.
Well, and this is probably the coldest day that we've had.
Well, officially last night was the coldest night of
Yesterday was extremely cold.
Yeah.
I had seen something on the news. Last night was the coldest night of the season.
Yeah, so. Well, and of course, this time of year, car batteries start to fail.
Yeah. Well, yeah, your wife called me and asked, she wanted me to come and give her a jump.
Yeah, yes.
Hello.
So me and my
did.
wife went to give her a jump.
Hello.
And
That's right.
That just wasn't a spark.
Ba-bum-bum.
The reason your wife probably called Ian and asked her to give him a jump is because you did me first.
Well, guess what? Ian got out there, no spark whatsoever. He couldn't get it up. So I had to go all the way down to Lakewood to rescue my wife.
From Ian.
From Ian, right? He sabotaged the battery on the van, so I had to go down there and save it. But luckily, I have jumper cables on it rusted through.
Yeah, that's probably helpful.
Was that Ian?
I gotta get some new ones.
Yeah. Well, they cost you $12 for 12 gauge.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was my prep time got totally wrecked because I had to go all the way down and I barely got home by 6:10 or something. So that's been fun. I've already had an eventful evening.
Have you guys considered converting the cars over to Energon like mine?
Energon, huh?
Energon.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, Energon is a lot harder to find than gas. So it's probably going to be a lot more.
That is true.
Right, and it might interfere with the flux capacitor. All right, well.
Kimberly, you got nothing on
Yeah,
this
Kimberly, what do you got here? Save us.
I don't have too much. I've just been busy myself. I have not had so many problems with the cold so far, but I have officially plugged in the electric blanket on the bed already. I was hoping to make it to December, but
oh yeah,
it's not gonna happen.
yeah. Well, at least plug the last podcast that you did. It was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
Oh, great. Thanks. I got another one coming out on Wednesday, the mediation conversation, this one about compassionate communication.
Well, now the last one was really interesting because the focus on it was the LBG community, and I missed the letter there, and how that creates slight differences in the legal field and how to deal with that, and that's not a huge focus, and that is a problem with these not understanding these relationships.
Right. Yeah, and especially given, the atmosphere where you're trying to basically help people who are having a difficult time. So if they come in and they're not feeling accepted, or even if they just have to tell their story to kind of get everybody on the right page. Again, I kind of talked about it in the podcast, but it's a scary moment of vulnerability where you feel like you're on the line for, well, hopefully I'll get a good reaction here, but what if I don't? And that's just that amps up your levels and does not really provide a calm and safe space for people.
Right. The other part that was interesting is that you guys did make a distinction between people who really understood what was going on and then people who were empathetic, right, but didn't necessarily know how to help.
Yeah. Again, I think there does need to be in any kind of situation just that diversity training. I mean, I've been in those and in different businesses, and sometimes they're really lame, but really good diversity training is really important. Just to be reminded that, we live in a world of, 80% of the time you can make some pretty wide-reaching assumptions about people. But, how much are you alienating or marginalizing the 20%? And there are different ways of coming at those conversations that can really just make an entire difference in the way things are going. And, with my mediation stuff that I've been doing, I've become really recognizing the way that engaging in a conversation, the way you approach it can change everything about it. And for me, that's been really interesting because it kind of falls right in with the stuff that we've done with the free thought exchange and, going into churches and having those conversations. Mm-hmm. We also did a counter apologetics this last weekend. And again, just it's the not so much what you say. A lot of times it's how you say it. It's recognizing who you're talking to and adjusting your communication style to fit that person. My whole life I've been more about the facts, like if I've got all my ducks in a row, it doesn't really matter how I present that information. That's kind of irrelevant. It's, the facts are what's important. But what I'm learning lately, and it's a new thing for me, is just how you couch it just has a completely different effect on the outcome. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I don't know how you resolve this, because like for me, I'm definitely on the outside of that community, right? I have gay and lesbian friends, but I'm not sure that I would. I could certainly empathize, right? But I'm not sure. I mean, how do we get? How do we make that diversity, understood? I mean, because you're not always going to have. I mean, you're going to have situations where straight people are mediating for gay people. How do you make sure that they get those tools? Because I'm never going to be gay. Yeah, well, because I'm never going to be gay.
Make it available to people. I mean, that's one of the problems that I'm finding in the mediation world is that there's just nobody really doing it. So, one, it needs to be out there, and then just again, just kind of make the time to do it. One of the projects I'm working on, for example, is they have these sheets, like when people break up marriages and there's kids to deal with child support, right? And, there's a lot of different configurations of that, especially these days, because you've got grandparents raising children and the parents are involved, but they don't have custody and stuff like that. In those kind of cases, we have this one sheet where you are either on the father column or the mother column. And there's no way to change the form. It's so locked down with all the formulas that you can't get in there. So I'm trying to take that form and make it so that it can be a little bit more interactive and you can identify party one and how they want to be referred to and identify party two rather than force some poor grandmother to assume the role of father on this form. It's just insulting.
So it's more than just LBT issues, because I was going to say, it's like a priest who's never going to be married, never going to be in that kind of relationship doing marriage counseling, which to me seems absurd. But maybe it's not. But maybe there is proper training to make that work. Mm-hmm. They don't usually have it, though.
Yeah.
So
there are lots of things to go into that. Yeah.
So I guess it's the same kind of thing that the analogy I'm trying to make is that me as a straight man, I'm always going to have a slightly different perspective than a gay or lesbian couple. Mm-hmm. And it's bridging that divide that I think is important, because that I'm not that clearly the tools are not available to do, I guess is my point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was interesting. I enjoyed the discussion.
Good. I'm glad you did.
All right, let's have the announcements.
Okay, let's see here. Where did my announcements go? Sorry, it's a little computer problem here. Not too much going on with the holidays coming up. Things are a little bit quieter, but some of the good ones that you should probably know about are Monday, November 19th. Denver atheists are involved with a Join the National Atheist Party of Colorado. This one's been swimming around for a while looking for a place and a date, and they finally put one up. I unfortunately won't be able to go, but I hope somebody can go and give us a report on that. I think it sounds like an interesting discussion anyway. And since we'll be talking more about politics today, it's just a good time of year to be talking politics. Then, of course, we've got Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has some really good turkey. Coming back on Sunday, December 9th, the Humanists of Colorado is going to have their Secular Light Celebration. And I wanted to mention this one because it's going to be in a different area. It's actually going to be in my apartment complex where we're not going to be able to do it in our normal place, so I'm renting the clubhouse room for that. And the Secular Light Celebration is kind of an homage to the solstice, basically the changing of the season, and just kind of a secular way of, I guess, identifying this time of year and reflecting on where we've been and where we're going and all that kind of fun stuff. So I hope people will attend that. It should be fun. And then on Saturday, December 22nd, the Free Thinkers of Colorado Springs are going to have a Mayan survivor party in downtown Colorado Springs.
Yep.
And
I'll be there. The amateur skeptics will
party
be there.
like there's no true Maya. Oh, no to Maya.
No to Maya. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm my wife and I are going to be down there for that. Definitely. We're going to make the trip. That should be entertaining.
All right.
Hey, have you guys looked into the National Atheist Party at all?
I haven't looked into it yet.
No, I'm really, I've heard him speak, and I just am not on board. And maybe we should have a more thorough discussion about it. But, part of the problem I see, especially with even the atheist community, is that politically we are divided. And so this idea of that all atheists can build a platform that they can all agree on, boy, that's a to me, that seems like an uphill battle, but they're trying, and so it's very interesting. We'll see. Well,
and we've had this conversation tons of time, and I still stand by the fact that more of us have more in common than we have differences, and I think it's a problem of our intellectual honesty, because we admit that there's nothing inherently connected to our atheism. We allow anything. And I think we just do ourselves a huge disservice. I'm personally, one of my things I've been saying a lot lately is, if you don't believe in, say, freedom of choice, if you don't believe in same-sex marriage or marriage equality, and you're an atheist, I think you should be defining yourself as one of those atheists who does not believe it, and leave it to the fact that most of us do. I realize that's asking them to put themselves as a minority, but as a person who's been a minority most of my life, it's not the worst place to be. But again, if you tell me, if the only information I have about you is that you're an atheist, I would put $5 down that you're probably pro-choice. And I'd be right most of the time.
Yeah.
Not 100%, but most of the time I would
on that
be.
issue. But I think that there's even a lot of issues. I think that if you get your average liberal and your average conservative together, they can agree on about 70 to 80% of things, and it's going to be that 20% that divides them. And I think that we're going to see the same thing with atheists as well, is that there's going to be certain stuff that divides them. So we'll see.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, I don't know where it'll come from, but I wish I could make that one.
All right, so everybody go and vote for at the 50 for Ian's story. If you haven't read it, you've got no excuse. It's free.
Yep. Well, basically it's up till the end of this month. So new issue comes out December. So we've got a couple more weeks. All
right. So now on to more blasphemous news.
Yeah.
Disney is now the owner. Go ahead.
I got a great introduction.
Okay.
Over the last few weeks, there's been a fair amount of news going on. The East Coast had some rain and snow and stuff. And about a week ago on TV, there was something about showing that all the states were turning either red or blue. All this minor, insignificant stuff. But the big news that came out, the one that really is going to impact us all, I think, is the fact that basically George Lucas, has agreed to sell Lucasfilm to Disney for $4.5 billion. Now, this is the type of thing that one of the reasons why I definitely would put out here is because it's definitely something to be skeptical about as to what the outcome is going to be.
All right.
It's one of those things, you see it and you're like, wait a minute, what? And then the next surprise that they added, the buyout was the first surprise. Then, 5 minutes later, everyone on Facebook was putting up, oh yeah, and they've announced that they will be doing a Star Wars Episode 7 now. And that's the one that I think really hit me the hardest in the whole thing. But then you start hearing things, start looking at it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you just know that Disney is going to screw up Star Wars like they did the Muppets and Pixar and Marvel.
Yeah, so that's one of the things.
They're just going to do a terrible, terrible job, and nobody's going to go see those movies.
Here's the deal. Lucas had already said he was stepping down. Lucas had announced that, and he found his replacement. I forget her name right off.
Yeah, it doesn't
Kathy
matter.
Kurtz.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's an established filmmaker who he trusts. And so what is happening is she's the one who's officially still going to be in charge of Lucasfilm. She will only report to the head of Disney. So basically it's not like Disney can bully him around. She only reports to the head of Disney, no one else. Lucas himself is taking a backstage to this. He'll be there to consult and give his own advice and stuff, but he'll have really no true control over it, which could actually be a good thing after what we saw with the prequels.
I refuse to acknowledge that the prequels exist.
They have some good stuff in there.
Yeah, occasionally.
It would have been a lot better if they would have killed Jar Jar, but...
It was like watching Anchorman. It wasn't a great movie, but it had a bunch of great bits.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to disagree on your slight on Anchorman now.
No, it's not a slight on Anchorman. Are you kidding? That movie is awesome. I'd watch that over any of those prequels.
Oh, Baxter, you're so wise. You're like a miniature Buddha covered with hair.
Scotch.
I guess no one will ever know what San Diego really means.
All right, back to that other thing.
Anchorman and Talladega Nights.
I'm sorry, Kimberly. I am sincerely apologize if that sounded like a slight, because it wasn't a coherent movie, but man, it's just so much fun. Each individual section is absolutely great. Mm-hmm. So, do you forgive me?
There was a fair amount of follow-up news, of course. To me, the coolest one was George Lucas basically saying straight out he's going to donate the majority of the $4 billion, because George Lucas was the only owner. He didn't, no one else owned it. He was the owner of Lucasfilm and sold it for $4 billion, so he gets all the money. Well,
he got to put his name on it and everything.
Yeah, he's not keeping most of it. He'll probably be a millionaire. He'll probably keep a few million to make sure he can do what he wants, that his family's provided for. But the majority of that $4 billion. He's saying he's just going to give away. He's not waiting until he dies or anything. He doesn't need it. And that is one thing I'm looking like, okay, that is too cool. He has his priorities straight. He's not worried about the money for the money's sake.
You don't think that he's giving that $4 billion to education to try to undo the damage the prequels did?
You want to come to the gun show?
But so yeah, he's donating most of the $4 billion. And it's like, wow, that's, It's harder, while he may have messed up the prequels, it's hard to really hate the guy. It's like, no, he's doing the right thing. You have to agree with that. That's cool. So then, of course, more news keeps coming out. The next one was, supposedly Harrison Ford was interviewed, saying that he would love to be in the Episode 7 as long as he gets a death scene. He wants Han Solo to die.
Oh, cool.
He had a death scene in A New Hope. He shot Greedo. That's a death scene.
Yeah, I do know.
And he shot first.
Well, yeah, Han shot first. Everyone knows that. But he basically, I've seen the interviews in the past where he has said that he always felt Han should have died in Return of the Jedi. And so that makes sense where he's saying, hey, listen, you want me? Give me a good death scene. Let me go out, give the character, an out. Now, of course, if past history is any relevance, when they killed Chewbacca off in the books, there was a huge uprising of hate mail and stuff, and people were pissed. So I have no idea how killing Han off in a movie is going to go over with fans, even if Harrison Ford saying, no, I want it to happen. So that should be interesting. And then the next big news that came out shortly after was that the writer, that they actually have a writer already set up, and he's been working for several months now on the treatment for it. But he was the writer for Toy Story 3, and he's also the writer for Little Miss Sunshine. So, obviously, it looks like this deal's been in the works for some time. My guess is, after Lucas decided to retire, he wanted to sell the company to Disney, and part of the deal probably consisted of Disney saying, hey, listen, if we're going to take it over, we want to do the sequels. And because they definitely had already planned out that it was happening. So, but that's, to me, is about the biggest news that came out over the last few days. I think, like I said, there was some other stuff going on, but I'm not sure if that's anything to concern yourself with.
To me, this was non-news. It's like, whatever. You're selling it to Disney. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, well,
it's not like it's not like there hasn't been a pretty strong relationship between Lucasfilm and Disney for years now, with Star Tours, exclusive figures in the Disney parks, and things like that. This just kind of formalized it.
Yeah, that's why the Disney part wasn't the big surprise. The big surprise that really was like, wait, what's going on, was them announcing the new Star Wars movie.
And I will tell you exactly how this whole Lucas thing came down. Now, picture me holding up 2 fingers on my right hand as I say, we want to sell the company to Disney. You'll give the money to charity.
These aren't the jokes you're looking for.
Ouch. I was pretty excited by the news, too. I mean, I'm sure it was in the works for quite a while, but I was surprised by it and hopeful. I mean, Disney's been doing some really great movies lately, so.
Especially when they stand back and let the creative people do the work. Pixar's been doing fine being part of Disney. We got the Avengers last year, and that was part of Disney. They're doing a very good thing of hands off, saying, okay, you guys know what you're doing. We will stand back and let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
There was
the
a
nerdgasm
rumor.
right now is the idea that maybe Joss Whedon directs next Star Wars.
Yeah, eventually I don't think that'll happen. I'd love it, but he is the one heading up the Marvel side of everything now. He's going to be busy taking care of that and setting up for Avengers 2. He's not going to be able to get involved in Star Wars.
I want Guillermo del Toro.
There's a rumor out there also that Disney's looking to buy Hasbro, although both companies are denying it. They're leaving wiggle room in there too, and it would actually kind of make sense considering that Hasbro has the licenses for, and has had for years, the licenses for 2 of their properties now, which is Marvel Comics figures and toys and Star Wars toys as well.
Yeah, but I won't put anything into that. Legos owns the exact same licensing rights. They got Marvel, they got Star Wars, and they have Disney licensing rights. Nah, that itself, no. I'm not seeing that happen.
Yeah, Disney's owned Lego for about 5 years, Ian.
Uh-huh.
No, not really. I can't support that.
You're calling bullshit on yourself? Is that?
I am.
Awesome.
Anyway, okay, so I mean, I was excited by the news. I thought, great, hopefully they can do better than Lucas. But how could you not?
Lucas had to have it taken away from him a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lost credibility.
He was burnt out from it. You get the impression that one of the things is after the way the prequels went over, he was kind of like, you know what, I really don't like the criticism and stuff. I'm just going to, so this whole move makes a lot of sense.
I think Lucas's forte has always been visuals.
Yeah.
And if he would let other people do the other stuff and just do the visuals, his movies would be as beautiful verbally as they are to look at. The scenes in the prequels, if you watch the prequels with the sound off, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
If you watch the action scenes, if you watch the planetscapes that I won't say he created, but he approved, they're absolutely fantastic to look at.
Hey, the fight scene between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jango Fett was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, what you do is if you turn off the sound and everything, and then you play it with Pink Floyd's "The Wall," it matches up perfect.
Are you going to call bullshit on yourself?
Yeah, I probably should, right? No, right? I should.
Yes,
I think we should be the new amateur skeptics thing is we call bullshit on ourselves when necessary.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. So hopefully Disney can step it up.
Yep.
Actually, they should step it up. That's copyrighted. I'll edit that out.
These aren't the jokes you're looking for.
These aren't the jokes you're looking for, exactly. Oh, boy.
All right, what's next?
Well,
What we got?
I don't know. So I should preface this with the person who sent this to me. Said in there, "See, Jenny McCarthy was right," and this is from the Heartland Times. The Times, Health and Family. So, but this is not the New York Times. It's just the Times. I don't know where this magazine's from. But anyway, it's pregnant mothers flu linked to higher risk of autism amongst children. And
how is that Jenny McCarthy being right? Because Jenny McCarthy doesn't want children vaccinated.
Well, but she
pregnant mother's flu has nothing to do with childhood vaccination.
Well, she knew there was a link. She got it completely backwards, but she knew there was a link.
Okay, are you going to call bullshit on this one?
Yeah, I did. I called bullshit on him, but it was just that the way he titled it, it's like, oh, I have to go read this.
Yeah, because the article's recommending they get the flu vaccine.
Exactly.
So they don't get the flu.
Yeah, no, she's
vaccination can stop the kid from getting autism.
Yeah, this was just one of my coworkers harassing me, and he spent the day harassing me about it too. So basically, this was a study done in Denmark, 1997 to 2003. It is a self-reported analysis, so mothers answered questions about infections they might have had during pregnancy. So already we've got a huge problem. Might have had during pregnancy. There's no verification that they had the flu or not. But amongst these people who said that they had gotten sick, that there did seem to be higher rates of autism, lower birth rates, or lower birth weights. Sorry, and so it's interesting, and I would certainly like to see the entire study. But it did seem to show a correlation between people who got the flu and children who had autism. So the idea here is that if these people had been vaccinated, that we would have seen a much lower rate of autism amongst these people. And the study was, what it says, nearly 97,000 people, which is a good sample size, right? But right there from the beginning, you got to go, what does this really mean? Because they're self-reporting, they're self-diagnosing whether they had the flu or not. So take it for what it's worth. It was interesting, but I have trouble putting a lot of weight into a self-reported study like this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do, call in sick with the flu, and when you get the flu, you have the flu. I mean, it's pretty serious. What we tend to learn, or what we tend to call a cold, we call them a flu sometimes, but really, it's not the flu. So
and there's a lot of non-specific viri that people say, I have the flu also.
Yeah.
And it's a 24-hour freaking bug.
Right.
Yeah.
But to do this right, you really need to have a control, which I guess are people who all had flu vaccinations and we know didn't get the flu, and then a sample of people who actually did get the flu to look at, and they don't have that here.
No. Self-reported is not necessarily the horrible part here. Because, unless you're going to keep people in laboratories all their lives, a lot of things are going to be self-reported. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, like you said, the actual definition of did you get the flu, I think is very often over-reported. But otherwise, it does make a lot of sense. It also really kind of brings back the realization. I mean, thousands and thousands of people die of the flu every single year, not with a bird flu epidemic or anything like that. That's when things go into the millions. But the flu is a very, very serious thing to happen to you, and the fact that they do have the flu vaccine out there and we've got populations that seem to refuse to do it is just silly.
Well, and what's scary is that we have a population of nurses who refuse to do it. And so people in hospitals who are transmitting the flu. It's scary to think that we have medical workers who are anti-vaxxers. Yeah. That's where this stuff starts to scare me. I can look at this and say, and I would be comfortable saying, well, it's enough to suggest that you don't want to get the flu while you're pregnant, so get the damn vaccine. That clearly, we can say that this suggests that the vaccine is going to be way safer than getting sick, and it always is. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the flu vaccine is nothing but a way to distribute government nanomachines.
I don't know why you don't have the crickets just ready
Yeah, I know.
to go.
I really need the crickets.
That's right there. It's a space bar.
I'll add them in post.
She's saying you need a keyboard shortcut for that.
Well, you know what? That can be arranged. Believe you me.
And the shingles vaccine? That's bullshit. If those suckers come off the roof, whether you've been vaccinated or not, you're going to get hit by them.
These aren't the jokes you're looking for. All right, I got another one here. And actually, this kind of...
we found our title, by the way. These aren't the jokes you're looking for.
Yeah, I think we have. I think you're right. So, this was an interesting one. No, it's not interesting. I take that back. This is a ridiculous one. Hurricane Sandy blamed on gays, Obama and Romney. Gays, Obama and Romney. Preacher John.
Wait, hold on a minute. Obama and Romney are gay? I mean, I'd heard rumors about Obama, but did they do it together? Because I'd watch that video.
Why don't you go bullshit on yourself right now? I know, basically, and this story's everywhere, so it just is one of those ones I find irritating.
So, Kimberly, why are you in the gay community trying to cause hurricanes?
Well, because they are, and then we would also want, no, I don't know. And I'm very sorry to go off on a complete tangent here, but even more interesting than this article of this idiot who says crappy, stupid stuff, up top it says the Boy Scouts lose corporate sponsors over their anti-gay policy, and it looks like UPS and Intel have both withdrawn corporate sponsorship from the Boy Scouts until they change their ways.
Oh, I didn't see that till now.
Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
I actually did read some fairly compelling evidence. Okay, it was a webcomic, but I did read some fairly compelling evidence that indicate that gays do cause hurricanes. Because apparently God was supposed to stop the hurricane, but he was busy watching gay porn.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, listen, we know that God really likes to fuck with his followers. I mean, we have that whole book called the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, and he put fossils everywhere just to confuse them. And then he tells them, psst, hey, I want Romney to win.
Yeah, he was snickering behind his hand on that one.
Oh, yeah, he was. Well, I mean, he told Glenn Beck, what do you expect?
Yep.
All right.
I have this image in my mind now of the French knights from Monty Python, the Holy Grail going, I told them we already got one. God's going, I told them I want Romney to win.
That's right. And don't legalize that herb. All right. I think that's clearly all we need to say about that.
Yeah.
Moron. Okay.
Yeah, douchebag makes a stupid statement.
Yeah, douchebag makes a stupid statement. Yeah, it was stupid. I mean, and what's funny about it, right? The one thing that is funny about this whole thing is that if you look at the global warming model, this is predicted in the model. These floods and these storms, right? Yeah, okay, we can't say that this particular storm is the result of global warming, right? But and actually, I heard a great analysis for that. And it was a baseball analysis, so everybody will get it. When there was heavy doping going on, you know, that there were more home runs and longer, but you could never attribute any single one of those home runs to doping, but you could the trend. And it's the same way here. We can look at the trend of storms and we can say, you know, here, this is what's going on. But instead of looking at actual scientific evidence, no. It's the gays and God is mad at America. It's just so. Do they even believe it? I don't even know that they believe what they're saying. These things come out of their mouths, and I don't even know that they believe anything that they're saying.
So it's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're so clearly grasping at straws, and you just can't tell what they're really motivated by these days. It's very bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear them kind of. I'm sure they would state that they honestly believe it, but it does seem too ridiculous to buy.
It seems way too ridiculous to continue to say this stuff. I mean,
you know, I had this conversation a couple days ago with Sam. I was talking about the fact that when we're talking about conservatives, the people who claim to be conservatives are actually reactionaries. And essentially, they want radical change by putting things back to the way they were, you know, like 50 years ago.
Or how they'd like to believe they were 50 years ago.
Yeah, or how they would like to believe they were. But essentially, they want to create radical social change by violent or nonviolent means, but by going back to the past. Whereas radicals want to create violent social change by moving forward into a future. So radicals and reactionaries are opposite each other. But the point that I'm making, though, is that these people are not actually conservative. They're not trying to conserve anything. They're just trying to. The only real conservative I think I've actually seen is probably Stephen Colbert.
Okay, so I would definitely disagree with that, because I think that what these people are trying to do, and you're right, it comes back to the 50s. when you hear Bill O'Reilly say that, well, this isn't a traditional America anymore, and everybody's talking about how this isn't your father's America anymore. Yeah, absolutely right. It's not, and it can't be. Things have to change. Traditional America included slavery,
and as you mentioned pre-show, cowboys.
Yeah, and cowboys. Yeah, I mean, so you can look at the history of our 200-year, 300-year, whatever history, right? However far back you want to go, when we signed the Declaration or not, and you can see that we have evolved, we have changed. But the thing that I think motivates them is that they see these changes as being harmful because it's different than the America that they grew up with, and yet, in some of us, look at this and go, these are the changes that we want. This is the America that we want, right? It's our turn now. These good old white boys have got to go away, and the new generation gets to have the America that they want. And there's going to be some point where we're going to be going, this country is going down the tubes because the next generation after us is going to make changes as well. And sure. That's just the cycle of things. That is how it's going to go. And so if the majority of this country wants to be more liberal, if we want to have gay marriage, if we want to have marijuana legalized, if that's what the majority wants, then that's the direction we move, because if everybody is voting in that block, then that's how we do it. That's a democracy.
And that's how it's always been. I mean, again, you look back even to the Bible, which of course is a cornerstone of truth and factualness. Even then, they were complaining about the next generation, about the kids these days. I mean, it's always been there. It's more of a fact of getting into your later years that you look back at the world with nostalgia and you think that the next generation is going to screw it up, and you miss the good old days.
Right.
I think what's interesting is because now we're living longer and effectively our youth is being extended. I mean, I'm 41 and I'm still I'm a very different 41-year-old than my parents were at 41, because I'm going to probably live longer than they will. I haven't quite hit the middle of my life where by 41 they had.
Right.
And so, what we're experiencing now, the only kind of unique part of it, in my opinion, stems from that fact that we're living longer, we're living better, and so that grumpiness age has shifted. And, we've, one, got more of them around because they're living longer, and two, we've got this more, I think, maybe progressive kind of thing lasting into an age longer than they used to.
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting social dynamics, but it's all constant, like you're saying.
Yeah, and if you go back,
and it's going to change.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back and look, Plato was complaining about the next generation. I mean, look at what he had to say about ZZ Top.
Yeah. What was that quote?
Yeah. No.
See, I'm trying to play the straight guy for you.
Yeah. Are you?
Which, of course, is irony.
Yeah. So it's just things are going to change. That's the evolution. So yes, it's not my father's America, and at some point, my kids are going to be saying it's not my father's America. And this idea that is what is going to be our downfall, yeah, it could happen at any time. I mean, Nero could come and burn the White House,
or the Canadians. They've done that before.
Yeah, the Canadians. Yeah. They've got the MO.
Yep.
So talking about change is actually a perfect segue into our next part. Basically, stuff that came out of the 2012 election. Apparently, there are 3 states that legalized marriage equality, and that, I believe,
and for the first time, was it Minnesota tried to pass a constitutional amendment against it, and it failed.
Yep. So there were 4 victories for marriage equality this year, and that brings it to, I believe, 10 states now have legalized marriage equality.
So it was Washington. It narrowly passed there, Maryland, and Maine.
Yep.
But here's the thing: is that everybody's talking about those victories, but to me, the more important victory was actually the Minnesota victory, because if they had added to their constitution that marriage was between a man and a woman, to me that I think sends us back further than just saying no, that voting against marriage equality. But going and saying it's between a man and a woman, that was the one that I felt like needed to be one.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, Kimberly, do you have a different view on that?
No, I agree. I wish this tide had turned a little bit faster because, unfortunately, we have those constitutional amendments in a lot of states, including our own, right here in good old Colorado.
Is that in our Constitution that marriage is between a man and a woman? I didn't realize that was in our Constitution.
It is, unfortunately. Yeah, that's why they're going with the civil union thing, which, based on the election, has a very good shot of happening in this next election cycle for the state of Colorado. The guy who started that bill last session is now the Speaker of the House. This is now Colorado local politics.
I thought it was a woman. Is it a he? Openly gay?
Now I don't have my names in front of me. I thought it was a guy, and maybe I've got that information wrong.
It's a woman. Was she one of the ones then who started it? I know a guy started the bill originally, but she might have been part of the team that put it together. I thought it was the Speaker of the House. Colorado Speaker of the House is a man. What? Okay, it's a man. Never mind.
Okay.
At the right, but is the gentleman who is the Speaker of the House, is he openly gay? Okay, he's okay. I got the confirmation from my wife. I'm going with it. So we now have an openly gay Speaker of the Colorado House. Mm-hmm. That is fantastic.
Yeah. So, but again, they can go ahead with the civil unions bill, but because of constitutional amendments, and like I said, Minnesota was late in the train of doing that. I don't know the exact number, but I'd say it's probably somewhere in around 20 or so states now have constitutional amendments, which is why my feeling is it's going to eventually have to be decided at the federal level and be kind of abolished the way slavery was.
No, and I would tend to agree with that. I think all of these individual states, though, that come out and vote for marriage equality, and actually this is historic because this is the first time that these have ever won at the ballot, and 3 of them won.
Yeah,
right.
So
right.
Yeah,
it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so too. And
I think so too. We've turned a corner for sure. It feels like we've turned a corner.
I hope you're right. I mean, the scary thing is that what if it gets to the Supreme Court and they, instead of go with a legal precedent, they go with a political precedent, and we've seen that with our at that level. I think we have anyway. Maybe that's an opinion.
Oh, it's definitely going to be an interesting couple of years. We've now got a sitting president who doesn't need to worry about re-election. Where he'll go with it will be interesting. Where the Supreme Court goes will be interesting. So there's a lot of stuff on track to. I don't want to make predictions that it will go X way, but it's going to be some interesting stuff to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I mean. The Ninth Circuit Court in California is still got Prop 8, I think, and I think that they can still appeal it there, and they can bring in more people, and then that can go to the Supreme Court, or they can choose just not to hear it again and send it to the Supreme Court if it's appealed, and I'm sure that they'll appeal it again. So I mean, right there could be the soonest battle if they even will hear it.
Right. And like you say, it's getting to that interesting point. I'm looking forward to that Lincoln movie that's coming out here soon. And I'd love to hear somebody do a really great historical in-depth analysis between, what happened with the Civil War and the slavery. Because, of course, slavery got abolished in several states and was still legal in other states. And some people, very much like today, had the argument that this is a states' rights issue. And other people made the argument that no, this is a civil rights issue and needs to be decided by the federal government. And in a lot of ways, that's, I think, again, I'm no historian here, but that's my understanding of why the Civil War had to happen. Because it got to a point where it was like, look, we've got too many states with opposing ideas here that are conflicting and needs to be settled.
Right, but that also had an economic component that this doesn't.
Sure. And they all do. I mean, this has an economic component to it as well.
Okay.
For a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, as much as I would pick up a bayonet and a gun, I don't think there will be a civil war over marriage equality, but what I'm just saying is politically it seemed to get to a point where something had to happen, one way or the other.
Yeah, no, I guess I don't also I guess the other one to look at is the history of allowing blacks and whites to marry, because that is also another one that went through a period of change.
Yeah.
And so that I think you could make some direct correlations there as well.
Yeah, agreed.
And of course, the next big thing that came out of this is Colorado became the first state to legalize marijuana.
And Washington. Yeah, Colorado and Washington.
Yeah, and
I guess we got to be first just because of the time zones. Is that?
Well, that's probably true.
Pretty much. That's the only reason we're first is because of the time zone. Because our
hour
finished first, so we can officially say we had it first.
You know what, though? I think,
really
though...
exciting to see what happens with it. I mean, we've got a federal law that now violates two states' mandates.
Right.
What are they going to do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing. Hickenlooper came out right afterwards saying, okay, you guys wanted it, that's fine. It's on the books, but don't start partying just yet, because we got to figure out how this stuff balances out before we can really do anything with it.
Yeah, but didn't the state's attorney general come out and say, and he was against it, after one say, okay, fine, then we'll stop. We'll honor this.
Yeah, well, the problem is balancing it with the federal level, because the federal at the federal level they started to try and go after the medical marijuana.
Yeah.
So this is even going to be a bigger thing for them saying, hey, listen, on the federal level we say it's still illegal. So there's a level of balancing out that's going to have to happen, and it's probably a good thing in the end because it's going to mean that hey, you have to look at it and decide, is it worth it? And hopefully we can start making some changes in the right direction there as well, because it is. And they did it right. They said, hey, we'll legalize it. We'll have basically the exact same restrictions on it that we do alcohol. And we'll make it so that, hey, if you're a grown adult and want to do this in the privacy of your own home, go for it. We're not going to go after you anymore. Yeah, you can't drive under the influence. You're not supposed to be giving it to kids. The same thing, same laws we have with alcohol, because for the most part, they work. They're not perfect. But, let's stop focusing our attention on what is, for the most part, a fairly harmless drug.
The problem is not necessarily giving it to the kids. The problem is that sometimes you have no place to get it but the kids. I think that on these issues, both of them, I think the genie's out of the bottle on marriage equality, and I don't think they can ever put it back.
Right.
I think the very stoned and bleary-eyed genie's out of the bong on the marijuana issue, and I think it'll probably be legal within about 5 years.
Wow, you're gonna call 5 years?
I'm thinking 5 years.
4, right?
I'd say within our lifetime. I don't know quite.
I'm actually kind of surprised it's lasted as long as it had. I mean, we're looking at essentially the same kind of issue as prohibition, and that didn't last nearly as long.
Yeah. Now, I guess the question is this a slippery slope? Is it a gateway to legalizing other drugs?
Caffeine is a gateway to utilizing other drugs.
As far as I think it was. I don't remember what comic it was. I think it might have been Dennis Leary, but he was talking about the fact that marijuana is not a gateway to other drugs. When you start marijuana, you end up making bongs out of everything. It's not a gateway to other drugs. It's a gateway to fucking carpentry. Yeah.
I still like Bill Hicks better. It shouldn't be legal. It should be mandatory. Stuck in a traffic jam, the guy's honking. Smoke that. It's the law.
But I mean, in all seriousness, it is interesting. I mean, I don't know that I think it's a gateway drug. I think it becomes a gateway drug when it's illegal, because the only way you can get it is from people who are interested in selling you harder stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can get it without it being, over the counter effectively, and I don't have to go to somebody who's interested in selling me crack or something like that at a higher margin.
Well, heroin.
Cigarettes are more addictive and probably more likely to make you want to find better highs, and they're perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Like I said, caffeine that should be considered a gateway drug. There's tons of people addicted to that can't do without it. You get into the idea that, it might lead to worse stuff. Like, you'd have to first justify all the other legal stuff that's out there as being better in that regards than pot. And I don't see. I honestly, I think cigarettes are probably more harmful to making you want to try and get bigger highs, from what I've seen. That's what I can honestly say. I've had virtually no experience with cigarettes, but I have had experience with pot and alcohol, and I can be sober, and I've never wanted to try anything more.
Yeah.
So.
But that isn't quite what I was talking about. Is this a gateway to legalizing other drugs? Is there gonna be an argument? Well, you've already made marijuana illegal, so why not heroin? There's more heroin out there right now. Heroin is so cheap in Colorado. My understanding is that these panhandlers are making enough money panhandling to do 2 hits a day of this stuff.
Well, in the countries that have legalized drugs in general, the problems with them have gone down. There is a level where by keeping it illegal, it makes it kind of, I got to do that because that's naughty and wrong. It does add a attractiveness to it. I will admit, I've admitted before, alcohol. I got drunk more times before I turned 21 than in the 17 years since I've turned 21. Why? Because it was cool. I'm not allowed to do this. Party. And I think there's a mentality like that about drugs and such. When you're told you're not supposed to do it, it's a thrill. It adds to the high.
Yeah, see, and I'm just the opposite. I didn't drink or do any drugs until I turned 21, and even then, I didn't start drinking right away. I had very little interest in these substances.
Actually, I have a friend who didn't drink until he turned 21. Once he turned 21. Apparently, he really got bad for a little while there, just going out and partying. So yeah. There's some mentality there on how you handle it. But most people I knew rebelled and did most of the messed up stuff before we turned 21. Then once you turned 21, it kind of lost the fun.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. These substances are dangerous, and they should be controlled. This beer is really good.
Yeah. Oh well, you'll have cops say that they've never had to apprehend a violent pothead. Well, potheads are normally fairly mellow. Yeah. You go after them, they're not going to beat the crap out of you. You go after a violent drunk, you might have problems.
Well, didn't the Denver sheriff say that it wasn't an issue for that very reason? But I did. I was talking to one of my coworkers after this, and she was concerned. Now, am I going to have to worry about people out there driving under the influence of this? And I'm like, well, let's be realistic about it. In Colorado, it's basically already legal. You walk in and you tell your doctor, hey, my back hurts. It's like, well, there's your card. It was so easy. The medical marijuana stuff seemed like it was, everybody had their medical marijuana card.
I know people who, have done it that easily. They didn't have to really do anything for it, and they have their cards. So, you're right.
It did not seem like it was difficult to get these cards. So,
no, and it wasn't like before it was even medical marijuana was legal that you weren't on the road with stoned drivers.
Well, So I don't know what the statistics on those are, but my feeling is probably not going to change now that it's legal. The people that were doing it anyway. I doubt, and there will be some, right, of course, but that there's going to be this rush for now that it's legal for people to go start doing it. I don't
agree.
foresee that.
I think that's one of those fear things, is that they're like, oh, now it's legal, everyone's going to be stoned. I think the same people who have been getting stoned for 20 years are going to continue to get stoned. The next generation is going to get stoned at the same rate the last one did. I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. It's just, what's going to be interesting is employment law, for example, where I've worked in the financial industry so long, and they're always give you a drug test before you can start in the financial industry. Well, it's not like we give anybody an alcohol test before they can start a job because it's legal. Now, can you give me a marijuana test before I start a job? Now, by the same token, if I show up to work drunk, it doesn't matter how legal alcohol is. Right. You can still fire me for showing up to work drunk. Same thing, stoned. I don't think there should be any difference there.
No.
But can you test me, because it stays in my system longer, that I've had something to smoke in the last couple of weeks? So again, I don't know. I've never worried about a drug test in my life, and I'm still not worried. But it just brings up those legal issues of, if it's legal, why? How can you tell me not to do it while I'm not on the job?
Well, the other thing is because of the point that you're making, that it's in your system. How do we know is there a test that can tell me whether they smoked it within the last hour or the last day? So I don't know how to answer that question either. So there's definitely some questions here that need to be answered. That probably haven't been addressed at this point. But I think that's okay. Because now it's legal. Now we have to go back and say, okay, how do we address all these things?
Right.
Right, now we get it figured out.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to note that, places like Amsterdam, which had legal marijuana, have really kind of cut down on the whole thing. They don't want to be that, drug, what do they call it? People who basically travel to Amsterdam just to get stoned.
Oh,
they
yeah.
didn't want that traffic.
Drug
So
tourism.
the question is, will Denver and Washington or Colorado and Washington get that traffic?
Right, but the government
it was
might not.
very profitable for them for quite a while.
Well, but the government may not want it. But they had. If you have a establishment who gives you a menu of different, types of marijuana, I mean that you are cultivating it. And are we going to see that here? I mean, right now I don't think the laws really permit that. You can have an ounce. It doesn't sound like you can set up a store. And actually, if it's only an ounce, I'm not even sure how you can sell it because the dealers are going to be limited. So I'm not sure how you deal with that issue.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if it is legal, it's like it's illegal. I can drink one beer and probably drive. If I drink 2 or 3 or 10, I can't. How does that work with marijuana? But yet there's a liquor store where I can go and buy any liquor I want and bring it home. Why should it be different with marijuana? Why can't I go to the marijuana store and pick up, several different varieties? So I think that, the law is short-sighted in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, too, from my personal view, I did vote for it, but I really I struggled with it because I thought it was stupid that it was a constitutional amendment.
Well,
I thought it should have been a law, and I would have voted all day long for it to be a law, but I really struggled because it was an amendment to the Constitution. That seemed really hard-handed to me.
Yes, it should have been
I did it
statutory.
anyway,
I agree that it should have been statutory. That was an issue that I had too. But on the other hand, I look at it and I go, well, what difference does it really make, particularly in Colorado? We amend our Constitution, like it's statutory. We make no distinction in actuality with the way that we govern.
Yeah. I think that's one I'd like to see changed.
Well, it is our history. And, you would have to streamline our Constitution and then move the stuff over that should be statutory, and move that stuff around. I think right now our Constitution, our Colorado Constitution, which I have not sat down and read completely, it is kind of muddled with that kind of stuff. So, unfortunately, in Colorado, I think that a constitutional amendment is as valid as anything with the way that we do things.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of valid in this election, so amendments, I think it was called Amendment 65 on the ballot, which was not a constitutional amendment, passed with a really surprising majority, like something like 70-30, but it was not an amendment to the Constitution. It was just basically simply a ratification that we all kind of agree that corporate spending should be limited in politics.
Right.
With there's no teeth to it or anything like that. It doesn't change anything. It just basically says that we all kind of feel this way. But it passed really, really well. And it's going to be another one to see, if they wind up doing something with it. Again, Colorado could become a very interesting state if corporate spending in politics is somehow limited or curtailed or just done differently.
Well,
and again, I hope it is, but I don't know exactly how it would.
But we already kind of have a test case for this, and that's Montana, who basically decided that they did not think that corporations were people, and they passed that in their state, and that went to the Supreme Court, and it got nixed. So I would have to guess that ours will be challenged. It'll end up at the Supreme Court and be nixed.
But it's still symbolic.
It's not like corporations don't try to influence the way that their employees vote anyway.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that.
Well, we saw a heck of a lot of that in this last election.
We did.
Yeah.
And we saw people basically saying, oh, by the way, if Obama wins, I'm going to fire you all. So, make sure you vote the way that I want.
Well, let's not forget what Ted Nugent said. He said, if Obama wins, next time this year, I will either be dead or in jail. I don't know exactly what Ted Nugent meant by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he meant by that either. Both he and Donald Trump went off on a pretty amazing amazing Twitter meltdowns anyway. So,
Well, the meltdowns have been. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, okay. Clearly we're on the left. I think that that's clear. And so, watching the meltdown of the right, it's Schadenfreude, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
yeah. So, enough about Colorado. Why don't you tell us about Arizona and Grand Canyon ownership, Ian?
Well, this was an interesting one. Apparently, Arizona actually tried to get a law passed that would have given ownership of the Grand Canyon and other federal lands to the state. And it didn't pass, so the Grand Canyon is still a federally owned national park. But it just was kind of interesting to think about how ownership of something like that.
Well, I was going to say, can they do that? Can they tell the federal government, you know what, we had a vote on this, and it's ours now?
And I'm not sure. They tried. They tried to do that, but I have no idea how that would have come out. If they would have passed it. It's one of those things like, wait a minute, could that happen? And it's just one of those things where it almost seems like it is more symbolic than anything else. That, hey, listen, we're making you have to think about it. But I don't even completely understand the whole point to it, outside of maybe they were thinking, hey, we can start letting corporations take it over. We don't have to follow all these protection laws or something. But you would think maintaining something like the Grand Canyon is pretty pricey. And for a state to be wanting it, I doubt they would make really any more off of the tourism than they already do, because the tourism dollars go to them, really. But it being a federal land means that federally, the government is the one that takes care and maintains it. So
Right.
I'm not sure what the overall advantage to this was either.
Yeah, it seems weird. I would.
It's a grab for tourism dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, the Grand Canyon is the thing in Arizona that most people come to see.
Yeah, but I don't think they'd make that much more. I doubt the Grand Canyon in and of itself makes that much money. The tourism
But it's a
dollars
perception.
the tourism dollars they're already getting. They have companies in and around the Grand Canyon that are paying taxes to Arizona. So they're making the tourism dollars already. So I doubt them taking control of it would have upped that noticeably enough.
Well, they could have changed the way that it's being maintained, and they might have been able to, back off on some things that they were doing, back off on protections and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you look at the article, the first thing it talks about is jurisdiction over air, water, public lands, minerals, wildlife, and other natural resources. And that's probably what, they... which, to me, I'm glad it didn't pass if that's what they were trying to do, because you don't want to see something like the Grand Canyon strip mined.
Well, yeah, and you probably don't want a whole bunch of people in there drilling for oil and stuff like that. Not that I don't know that there's any in that area. I've never seen a survey. And actually I don't think we've processed any Arizona data. But
that's what it feels like they were trying for, is, hey, we want to start, selling this off to corporations for them to do whatever the hell they please with it, which,
yeah.
I mean, that would almost counter the whole point of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I don't know, and it scares me, the precedent that this could set, because Utah could go, well, we got Arches and Dinosaur,
yeah.
And then in Colorado's going, well, we got part of Dinosaur, and there could be a fight over that.
So
Kick Utah's ass.
But I would hate for that. Those areas are beautiful. I don't want them to.
The national park idea is a great idea.
Yeah,
I don't.
It really is.
It scares me that the conservatives seem to want to get rid of it. That's what it felt like there. We don't want the national park idea because we won't be able to go along with the land. It's like, we need to preserve stuff like that. That's beautiful. Don't just let some corporation come in and destroy it. No, we'll keep it the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just wonder if they could have done it.
Such a high margin, then.
Yeah,
I don't understand the laws here. Could they actually have done this, or was this just some people who thought they would try it?
Don't know. That's the thing. It gets a bit funky. Well, I was telling you earlier today that my understanding is in 15 states in the country, people have filed petitions for those states to separate from the Union, separate from the United States. And while all in all, that's more of a symbolic gesture. How could it, what level could they take it to? I mean, supposedly the Texas Congress is actually seriously debating this now and stuff like that. It's like, what would happen if these states tried to declare themselves independent now?
Well,
How would that work?
Yeah, I don't know. There's an interesting thing with Texas because right now, Texas is taking in more federal dollars than it sends to the federal government. So, looking at their financial situation, that's probably not a good move for them.
Yeah, well, if you look at in general, it seems the conservative states are the ones who are more dependent on federal government than the liberal ones.
Right.
So these states that are saying, "Hey, we want to leave," it's kind of like, okay, well, you'll save us money, I guess.
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting. I mean, it's certainly Texas has the right to secede from the union. They can do that if they choose to.
That's the only state that actually has that in its constitution.
Right. So all these rest of these guys. But here's the thing: is that I bet every one of those 15 states. I haven't seen your article, but they all must be red states. Am I wrong?
Actually, I think Colorado was listed as
well. Colorado is
one of them. I think that this is. You're talking about the people putting up information for secession.
So who's doing
this? These are
this?
individuals.
Oh, they're individuals.
They're not states.
Okay, never mind.
They're not states. They're individuals, basically grousing.
So it's conservatives that are whining about not winning an election.
Yeah,
more or less. But it's an interesting thing that they're doing that because while it's symbolic, I think they need like 25,000 signatures to even get it taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that, from what the article said, could be taken seriously. It could be looked at like, okay, we actually have to address this.
I say we round them all up, taser them multiple times, and ship them to Canada.
I say we ship them all to Texas. Let Texas succeed.
Well, I mean, I think shipping them to the 51st state's a good idea.
Davy Crockett gave his life to keep Texas a state.
Oh, God. These aren't the jokes you're looking for.
Don't be disrespecting.
These aren't the jokes you're looking for.
But no, let Texas succeed. Let everyone who wants to live in a pure conservative country go over there. I have a weird feeling it won't last too long, but
these kinds of things are emotional reactions.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, whenever you make a decision like this based on emotion, it isn't always well thought out. In fact, I would say it's never well thought out. So
you get the 24-minute rants.
Yeah, so I don't even know that exactly. That's an interesting one. I'm not even sure that I would consider these symbolic at this time. I would just consider them emotions. They're just emotional responses. It's not really symbolic of anything. Yeah, these people are upset. Things did not go their way, and people are always upset when things don't go their way. Right now, things kind of went my way. I'm pretty pleased with the turnout. But there's some scary things that happened in this election, and I think that Kimberly was talking about one. You know, when you have to say in an election, "Hey, did the rape guy win?" and the response to that is, "Which one?" That's a scary thing.
I don't think any of them
did win.
Well, none of them did win, and I would say, okay, I'm not a statistician, I'm no Nate Silver, but I think that those kinds of things very much hurt the Republican Party in this last election. I think that if they didn't have that kind of stuff going on, if they weren't disenfranchising so many people, that they would have done much better. They might have taken the Senate in that scenario, but because they had so many rape candidates, you know, and these kinds of feelings going around, it hurt them.
Yeah, I know. The stuff that was said over this last year, it's some of the dumbest things I've ever heard for people trying to get into office. I mean, there's a certain level of stupidity that's generally there, but the lines that were crossed, it's like, wait a moment. You guys really shut your brains off before you talk?
Well, they made Michelle Bachmann look moderate.
Yeah, that's scary.
And she managed to keep her seat, right?
Well, I don't think that the person she was running against was. I think that was the right choice.
How does that happen?
I don't know how that happens. I would have to look closer at that election. That's something that I heard.
Yeah.
So.
We're going to talk about this UFO video.
Speaking of the... Oh, go ahead.
I was just asking, are we going to talk about this UFO video?
I did not get an opportunity to watch this, so, but we can move on to that.
Okay. Well, this video, the report here that we're linked to is actually from, I believe, Fox News. Yeah,
Fox News.
Yeah, a Fox News channel actually covered this thing. Because it was here in Colorado. Yeah. Sorry, I'm catching myself back up. So Fox News here in Colorado covered this. And basically this guy has recorded a UFO, unidentified flying object, not an alien, it's for, a UFO from this one spot on multiple occasions. And they got Fox 31 here to go, and they set up a camera at the exact spot, pretty much he's been setting up his camera, and they got the exact same thing. It's like, okay, great. You did the first step perfectly. You went and you said, okay, we can get the exact same thing he got. And they took it to a professional and had the professional look at it. Well, what got to me watching this was, well, why don't you try and, move the camera a few miles and see what you get a few miles closer, since you seem to have an idea of when this event is happening? It was, the guy stays at the exact same spot and doing the exact same thing and doesn't seem to be interested in doing any more investigation than the fact that, hey, look, I have a UFO. And that's what drove me crazy watching this whole thing. It's like, you're not doing, this is a recurring thing. You need to know the parameters of it.
Okay.
I'm kind of thinking that if he's giving them a spot to set up the cameras, then he could be setting up what the cameras are seeing.
Well, that's true. I was going to say,
the object that we're seeing on there, it kind of looks, I'm watching this, and it's going in the same flight path every time. And it honestly looks like something thrown or something.
Yeah. The way it moves does not look like it's doing anything on its own power. It looks kind of like it's moving, something else is pushing it around.
Oh, and it's not any sort of a complex flight path. It just looks like something in a straight linear flight path, which is not necessarily wrong.
Yeah, it's really simple the way it's moving. And the expert said it could just be debris being blown around, and that's the way it moved. I could see that.
I don't think I'd see if it's debris. It'd have to be heavy debris from the way it moves. If it was light debris, it wouldn't move that fast.
Well,
I think though, you could achieve the same kind of result by like flinging a clay pigeon.
I mean, the guy who did it, he's figured out approximately the area where it must be landing. I just did the quote things with my fingers, but so everyone can see I'm doing the quote thing with my fingers. I know you all can see that.
Did they do this with a higher resolution camera by chance, or did they use his camera?
No, they used a better camera, and they got about the same thing. But like I said, the guy's pinpointed where approximately this is all happening. And for some weird reason, he's not going to that area and trying to get a better look at it. He's staying still on this hillside. And
which makes me think that he already knows what it is.
Possibly.
And he's set it up.
I could see that. But that's what I found frustrating. It's like, dude,
you have no idea how big this thing is. I mean, either. That's the thing. That there's no way to say how big it is.
No. It looks like a Frisbee or something to me. Or, even possibly an insect filmed from very close.
I was going to say the same kind of thing. Like, it looks like a big object very far away.
Yeah.
But small objects that are very close have a similar kind of thing.
The expert officially said it wasn't an insect. So
okay, fine.
So
what kind of experts?
I forget. They had an expert looking at the video who said it was interesting, and he's the one that said it could possibly be debris of some kind.
You know what? It's a.
What are they experts in though? If they're experts, I want to know what they're experts in. I'm an expert in a lot of things, but I have opinions on the video too. My expertise on the video doesn't really apply.
It doesn't look.
What
like
are they experts in?
It looks like something thrown up that comes back down. But here's the thing: is that did they ask anybody how this could be replicated? I'll give you that it's a UFO. I can't identify
Hold on a second. This is something that is thrown up that comes back down.
Well, it kind of looks like that to me.
Well, then it must be an alien spacecraft, because alien spacecraft are affected by gravity, and this object is obviously affected by gravity as well.
Well, but here's the thing: is anybody saying aliens, or are they just saying UFO?
UFO,
I'm saying aliens now.
Well, yeah, but
I'm saying aliens.
But unidentified, it means that unidentified. Okay, great, you found something unidentified. Good for you.
Yeah, that was my attitude. It's like, dude, go and do more research, get closer, do something, find out more before you make the big deal about it. Because what you have, we know nothing about it, and he seems to know all this stuff that he's not investigating further, that he could easily do on his own.
If it's that regular, he should be trying to get closer to it to figure out what it is.
That's the way I felt the whole time watching this thing. Like,
It's a kid's RC. It's something.
Here's another theory. Estes model rocket.
There you go. I mean, it could be something like that, too, very easily. Yeah.
Although I don't see any kind of a contrail such as a rocket would have. But
well, that's what I'm saying. It could easily be some sort of, remote control thing, that somebody's flying up and bringing down. And at a distance, it looks like this. So, I mean, here's the thing: is that we can speculate all day long, right? The fact is that none of us know, right? So it is a UFO.
Yeah, I agree. I agree it's a UFO, but I said this is the way the guy was. His name's not given. We never see his face or anything. But the fact that the guy seemed to be making a big deal over this, that he got it on the news, and he's not doing any other research that to me would be so simple and so logical to do.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like
the question is then, was his whole intent to get on the news? Because he did it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, if I'm doing a hoax, I don't want to be identified either. Not that I'm saying he's doing a hoax.
Yeah, well, we don't know that either.
You're only implying it.
I'm only implying it. I don't know. I actually don't know that it's a hoax. I mean, he could very well just be saying something that he can't identify, and it could be that simple. But if you don't want to take the next step to try and track it down, if it's that regular, you're going to be able to, track it down and find it. The more interesting thing about the people who claim that they're finding aliens is that most of these events are one-shot events that, for whatever reason they manage to catch. If it's a regular repeated event, like he's saying it is, and if other people are able to go out and film the same thing, you're going to be able to find out what it is.
Yeah.
Why leave it at UFO at that point? Let's get closer. Let's track this thing down. So, but even the news reporters didn't seem interested in that. They had some filler for their show.
Right. That's the other thing. It very much felt like the news reporters were like, "Hey, we got something that will attract a few people." It's like,
right.
Come on, be investigative journalists for once. Go out there, and really, like I said, the first thing they did made sense. Okay,
considering that it's Fox News, though, they may have just been trying to take their mind off the election.
Well, it's not Fox News; it's Fox 31.
Yeah, it's Fox 31. They're
local Fox.
Yeah, they're slightly different, but they're still owned by the same corporation.
Yeah, they don't have to be quite as brainwashed.
Well, all right.
I just thought it was interesting to look at the fact that it's being looked at but not explored enough. It's like, go to the next level. It's definitely something that you should be able to learn what's really going on.
But there are people in Colorado that they could contact if they really wanted to try and track this down. If they wanted to, they could contact Brian and Baxter. Heck, even though we're kind of defunct, they could contract the Center for Inquiry, and IIG could take a look at it. We could at least find some experts and put something together if they really wanted to do that. Heck, they could have contacted MUFON. They didn't even contact MUFON. So,
well, I don't know what good that would have done. I think that wasn't she like a Chinese warrior?
These aren't the jokes you're looking for.
Hey, another silence.
Yeah. Well,
got a lot of editing to do in this one, Brian.
Yeah, jeez. I'm going to have to add a lot of crickets. All right. So, it's interesting. But ultimately, they chose not to do anything that would actually solve this. They just wanted to have an unidentified mystery on the nightly news, and good for them. They succeeded. So, yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
On that note,
yeah. Have we disenfranchised enough listeners this evening?
I think we did good.
No, we haven't. Well,
I don't think we've disenfranchised nearly enough listeners.
I think you get to kill off the last three.
Yeah, exactly. The last three. Go for it.
Oh, I don't know. I don't necessarily have anything to do it with. I'm just saying we haven't done enough.
Well, hey, you guys. I guess I should ask. And I should preface this with I know where you live. Now that you've all been on Dumbass's show, what do you think of the guy?
I can say my feelings about Dumbass are complicated.
I mean, we're talking about our last three listeners, So, Mac, but what do you have to say?
Well, I felt pressured.
Pressured? Did you?
Pressured.
Really?
I did.
I didn't tell him anything. I didn't. I swear. I was good.
I think we can all agree that I'm a nicer guy than he is, though, right?
Yeah.
While you're on the phone, absolutely.
Anything you say, Brian.
Yes. If you say so, we'll agree. Right? Yeah. We don't want any trouble. We'll be good.
There's no need to get puppies involved.
All right. Anything else?
No.
All right.
I think we've driven this one into the ground.
Yeah, I think so too. So,
Good night, everybody.
yeah, that's another one in the can, right?
Yep.
Another one in the can.
Good
Another
night,
one
guys.
bites the dust.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics Podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.